Today I'm going to show you how we make our bread. We use a no-knead bread recipe, so we mix it up the night before and then leave it all night and bake it the next day. So, this is the Neil's Homestead, and this is how we do it. We always strive to use healthy ingredients, and we try to keep our bread recipes simple. So this is kind of how I do it. I just use a scoop, and through experience I know pretty much how much it takes, and I count them out. Since it's winter time, I'm only doing small batches, so I only need about 5 scoops. One of my varieties, I'm going to use 10. This one is our honey wheat, so I need to add whole wheat flour to it. I'm using a ratio of 7 to 3, and this is the one that I'm making 10 loaves of, because it's pretty popular right now for some reason. By the way, I use a sour cream cup, because we figured out that if I heap it to just the right amount, it ends up being 1 loaf of bread. 1 scoop is 1 loaf of bread. And this is equivalent to about 2.5 cups or so of flour. Now I'm ready to add salt. I'm using a little bit heaped tablespoon for these, all except for one bowl. I'm not putting any because it will be garlic, and the garlic mix that we have already has quite a bit of salt in it. We found that if we add extra salt, it doesn't rise well. I'm using about a teaspoon of yeast. I vary it a little bit on a couple of different varieties because they don't rise as well. Again, the garlic needs a little bit more yeast, and it seems like the jalapeno needs more yeast. My first flavor I'll do is rosemary. We just use straight dried rosemary for this. Then I'll use Italian. We use an Italian herb mix. For the garlic, we noticed that it wasn't rising well, and then we figured out that the garlic has a lot of salt in it already, so we don't add extra salt. It takes a little more flavoring than the others do too. Raisin bread. We tried to make cinnamon raisin bread a few times. We have several requests for it, but it wouldn't rise. And we figured out that the cinnamon is an anti-fungal ingredient, and it doesn't let the yeast do its thing. I know we have a lot of customers asking about it, but we haven't figured that one out yet. We'll keep trying. For cheese, we use cheddar cheese. We used to get it in a big block and cut it up it was a lot of work, and I actually had a special callus just from cutting cheese. But we found the grated, and it's a comparable price, so we use this. It's a lot easier for it. I have my sour cream cup again. This, we do it by weight, and this is about 12 ounces for the cheesy cheese bread. For the cheesy jalapeno, I use about 8 ounces because it has another ingredient as well, the jalapenos. Alright, so that does it for the dry ingredients, I believe. I tried using this while mixing bread, but this is just not me. I'll just mix the dry ingredients real quick and then move on to the wet ingredients and the water. I do this so that all the yeast doesn't end up on one side or something like that. Next is the honey wheat. We get our honey here locally, and I dissolve it in warm water so that it mixes into the bread without clumping up. Just pour it on here. There's always a little bit of extra honey stuck to the side. Don't want to waste that, so I put hot water in this. Go ahead and get the rest of that and try to bring it up to about the right amount of water. The first one I'm going to do is the jalapeno. These are our own jalapenos. We save them in the summertime and freeze them when we have extras, so then we can just use them to make bread. These are frozen, so they don't chop up unless I thaw them first. Well, the fastest way to thaw them, after I get them weighed out here, go ahead and chop them. That should have that. You have to watch this stuff whenever you open it. Sometimes it's like a tear gas bomb went off in the building. It'll choke you out of the place. Hopefully it won't be that bad today. I always get just a little water again to rinse the last of that out of there. Now for the fun part. I'm done with the first one, raisin bread, so 7 more to go. Now I'm doing honey wheat. This is probably my favorite to knead. It usually ends up kind of a silky texture that's a little bit fun. This is called no-knead bread, but I would actually call it low-knead bread because it definitely does take some kneading. It just doesn't take half an hour of kneading. We used to knead this a whole bunch, but we figured out that it doesn't really matter if you knead it a whole lot or not. The key thing with it is that the dry and the wet have to be evened out. You can't have any dry spots, floury spots, Otherwise it'll still be dry tomorrow. You have to have a uniformity through it. As long as you get that, it will go ahead and set up the gluten bonds overnight, the same as if you had kneaded it for half an hour. For this honey wheat bread, I keep adding water because I like to run it a little bit wetter of a dough. Overnight, the bran soaks up some of the water, and it'll end up not as wet as you thought it was. There's a few others also that I do that with. The raisin, I usually try to run it wet because, again, the raisins soak up some water. And the cheese will actually soak up some. My sourdough. It took us a lot of experimentation to get this one where it rose properly. That was the biggest challenge with it, is that one time it would just explode overnight, and the next time it would not rise well at all. And I think we finally have it kind of figured out where we can get pretty consistent results out of it. One of the big things with it is temperature control. You really have to, all of these you have to watch the temperature on. In the wintertime we use a heater in here. In the summertime we use an air conditioner just to try to maintain a bit of consistent temperature. These are actually most of our varieties of bread. We have cheesy jalapeno, cheesy cheese, sunflower flax, rye, honey wheat, rosemary, Italian, garlic, raisin, 3 olive, dilly, potato, basil. So we have all those varieties of bread that we make, and then the sweet breads. I try to do my cheese breads last because milk is a common allergy and some of our customers are allergic to it. That way I avoid cross-contamination as much as possible. 4 down, 4 to go. Halfway there. Alright, that's all of it. We usually try to finish up about 7 or 8 at night after dark so that the bread doesn't have too long and over-rise overnight. I'll put it all here so it has a consistent temperature and hopefully will rise well. We'll check back in the morning and see how it looks. It'll be good. About 7 o'clock, and it's time to see how our bread's done. Overnight it'll rise up and fill out the bowl. As you can see, this one, which had 10, is a whole lot fuller than these, which had 5. So you can see it's risen up and fluffed up. It's got air bubbles in there now. This is the honey wheat. It's the largest batch we made yesterday. We made 10 of it. And those are cheese. You can see each one's different. For example, over here, there's the cheese. And then, if you see the cheesy jalapeno, you see it didn't rise as much. I put extra yeast in there even. The jalapenos kind of keep the yeast from doing their thing quite as well. So I'll make it up last whenever I loaf up bread. Now the sourdough is always my most finicky one. I'm always, worried what it's going to look like in the morning. It looks like it did pretty good. It really could use a little bit longer to rise yet. I usually form it up first, and I usually end up baking it last. It just takes extra time. The next step is turning this into loaves, but we're going to do that in another video. So for today, thank you for watching. Please subscribe, like our videos, and leave a comment below.